Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. A lot of important events have been happening in Ukraine, so let's get to the headlines. And I want to start with this one. President Zelensky claims the Russian advance in Ukraine has been halted. On Monday, President Zelensky said, "The situation today for Ukrainian soldiers is much better than it's been in recent months." And I think the explanation for this is pretty obvious. When we switch over to the military map, the Russians achieved their primary objective for their winter military campaign, to capture the mid-sized town of Avdiivka prior to Putin's re-election. The Russians began directly assaulting the city going back to October. They lost tens of thousands of soldiers, hundreds of armored vehicles, but they did it. They did manage to capture Avdiivka prior to Putin's re-election, which is happening this week. So this pause in the fighting, Russian units are reconstituting themselves, they're shuffling around on the map, but these assaults will begin again. So Ukraine has to be prepared. According to President Zelensky, Ukraine is building 2,000 kilometers of fortifications. Ukraine is going to play defense this year. Given that MAGA Republicans are blocking military aid from the United States, Ukraine can't afford to go on the offensive. If the House of Representatives had approved military aid last October, this would be a completely different war. But for this year, 2024, Ukraine has to hold on. They have to hold the line and get serious about building these defense fortifications. And Russia got invaded again. Anti-Kremlin Russian volunteers infiltrate inside Russia with tanks, claiming to have captured one village. This is the Freedom of Russia Legion and the Russian Volunteer Corps. They invaded Belgorod last summer. And in the comments section, a lot of people were asking, where are these guys? What have they been doing? And they have been fighting in Ukraine, protecting Ukraine's border alongside the Russian area in Belgorod. But they're going on the offensive this week, and it's not a coincidence. We prepared this operation for Russia's sham elections. So the Russian dissidents who have joined the Ukrainian military in these two units, they're purposely trying to cause chaos this week to make Putin look bad before his election. And this is where they've split up and attacked. This is the city of Belgorod. This is Sumy. So they've crossed here and here. Now when we zoom in, one of the villages that they're currently occupying is Lozovaya Rudka. I mean, this is just over the border, so this is Russian territory. But when you zoom in, it really only looks like there's a couple farms and a couple houses. The more impressive still is, the reports are coming out now, that the Freedom of Russia Legion is in charge of they've taken control of the Russian village of Tetkino. This is a village of about a couple thousand people. As soon as they crossed the border, the Russians stationed here fled. The Russians are regrouping. They're going to try to retake this village. When this happens, they delay pictures and videos being released for about 48 hours. So this invasion occurred this morning. We don't exactly know how well it's going. But in general, any chaos in Russia that can hit social media, cause Russians to pause and think about what's really happening in their country, I'm sure this has the Kremlin alarmed. There are a couple videos so far, captured from drones or locals in the area. I'll link this down below if you want to see it, but it just looks like the rest of the war at this point. I do think more spectacular pictures and videos will come out this week, comparable to the events of Belgorod last summer. Has a Ukrainian drone attack damaged another Russian A-50 AWAC aircraft? So Ukraine successfully shot down two of these planes, each being worth about $350 million. And they're hunting They're hunting for the remaining A-50s in Russia's fleet prior to the introduction of F-16s. So this facility, there's a before and after satellite picture, and this is a hangar where the A-50 can receive maintenance. And this is the satellite the day before, and this is the day after. Ukraine got intelligence that an A-50 was parked in this building, and they took some drones through the roof to hopefully attack the aircraft. Now, because it's inside this hangar, we can't see the damage. Unless a Russian soldier is dumb enough to take a picture and post it on social media, we don't know to what extent this drone attack was a success, if it actually hit the A-50, or if the A-50 was moved prior to the building being struck. Where did this occur? And this happened in Taganrog, west of Rostov-on-Don. And I'm pretty shocked that, being how valuable the A-50 is, they would park it so close to Ukrainian territory, but the Russians aren't very smart. Dramatic footage shows a Russian Ilyushin-76 Army cargo plane crashing with all 15 of their crew on board. The aircraft, on a scheduled flight en route to Severny Airfield near Ivanovo, crashed in a wooded area shortly after takeoff, with its right outboard engine visibly ablaze. So there is a video online, I'll link it down below, but the Russians are saying that this military aircraft hit a bird, which ignited the engine. The engine actually fell off the plane. The plane then shortly crashed. This could be true. I don't think the Ukrainians did this, but this could have been sabotage. This could have been incompetence from Russian maintainers, but this is another Russian military aircraft with a military crew that did not survive. Here's a picture in the woods. A complete loss. Ukrainian drone attacks across Russia set fuel depots ablaze. This has been Ukraine's strategy for the last 2 months, 2 or 3 months, to go after all of Russia's oil refineries and oil depots. These are all used to support Russia's military war machine. They are valid military targets. And this was a Lukoil refinery in the Nizhny Novgorod region. This is over 1,000 kilometers from Ukrainian-controlled territory. Ukraine has the drones to reach all of Russia's most important oil depots and refineries. There's nothing Russia can do to stop these attacks. Ukraine has the technology, the drone technology, for these drones to go about 1,000 kilometers. So every other day, every week, Ukraine is going to continue these attacks until every Russian oil depot and refinery is offline. The only way Russia can stop this is if they stop this war and pull back to their own country. Here's the big story from the weekend. Pope urges courage to negotiate on Ukraine war, suggests that Ukraine is defeated. The Pope shocks Ukrainians by implying they have lost the war with Russia and should raise the white flag. Let me give you the response. Kyiv slams Pope's white flag call, vows no surrender to Russia. Ukraine's flag only has 2 colors, yellow and blue. There is no white. So let me read for you what the Pope said in this interview, so people don't think he's being taken out of context. I think he's speaking in Italian, but I'll read for you the English subtitles. I believe that the strongest are those who see the situation, think about the people, and have the courage to raise the white flag and negotiate. And today you can negotiate with the help of international powers. The word negotiate is a brave word. When you see that you are defeated, that things are not progressing, it is necessary to have the courage to negotiate. You are ashamed, but how many deaths will it end with? Negotiate in time. Look for some countries to mediate. Today, for example, in the war in Ukraine, there are many who want to mediate. Turkey, for example. So where do I begin with the Pope? And I think everyone is well aware of the Vatican's shameful history appeasing and working with dictators. So this isn't a good look for the Vatican, not a good look for the Pope. But what treaty, what negotiation, what agreement has Russia ever entered into that they've kept their end of the deal? The Russians are liars, they're manipulators. Putin on Kremlin state TV admits this is a war of imperialism. Russia wants their empire back. Everything that once belonged to the Soviet Union or the Russian czars, Putin wants it back. This war can't end in Ukraine if Putin is allowed to keep any territory. He will go back for more, he will attack the Baltics, he'll attack Poland, maybe Finland, Georgia, Kazakhstan. Is the Pope really going to say all of these countries should have the courage to raise the white flag, negotiate, and submit to slavery in this new Russian empire? And this is who the Russians are. I'm going to read this statement. The Russians kept 25 girls aged between 14 and 24 in the basement of Bucha to constantly rape them. This was in the first weeks of the war. 9 of these girls got pregnant. Russian soldiers told these Ukrainian children, 14-year-old girls, that they would rape them so much, to such an extent, that they would never want sexual contact with any other man in order to prevent the birth of future Ukrainian children. This is who the Russian military is. This is what Russian soldiers were doing. Week 1 and week 2 of the war. Mass rape. So I would hope that the Pope would want to stop rape, stop violent crime, protect children, but he's not going to do that. David should have had the courage of the white flag and negotiated with Goliath. Has this man ever read the Bible? So the Pope's colors are white, blue, and red right now. As far as I'm concerned, this guy can go to hell. That might have been too much. I don't know, maybe I'll cut that out. Orban claims Trump said he won't give a penny to Ukraine. Hungarian dictator Orban claims that the former US president stated to him he would not provide a penny in funding for Ukraine, which echoes US aid delayed by congressional Republicans. We need to stop pretending. Stop pretending that House Republicans or MAGA Republicans are acting in good faith, that they really want to support Ukraine, but first they want to secure the border or cut spending or fund the government, whatever. It's nonsense. It's a political game. MAGA Republicans in the House are lying. It's always been about helping Russia and blocking military aid for Ukraine. Viktor Orban flew to Mar-a-Lago for a fake state dinner with former President Trump. Trump told him exactly what he thinks of Ukraine. And thank you to Orban for going on state media and telling the truth about Donald Trump, warning the world that Trump is trying to help Russia and trying to destroy Ukraine. So here's what Orban said about his meeting with Trump. Donald Trump has a very clear vision that is hard to disagree with. He says the following. First, he will not give a single penny for the Russian-Ukrainian war. That's why the war will end. If the Americans don't give money and weapons along with the Europeans, the war will end. And if the Americans don't give money, then the Europeans won't be able to fund this war alone. And then the war will end. Donald Trump may not be president of the United States yet, but his party is stopping Democrats from spending money on the war. Trump says when he comes back, he won't give a penny to Ukraine. That's when the war will be over. And he says he doesn't want to fund Europe's security instead of the Europeans. And the Europeans are afraid of the Russians. That's some refreshing honesty. I appreciate Orban telling us this, that Donald Trump has ordered the Republican Party to block military aid in Congress. And if Trump is elected in November, he will do everything to make sure Ukraine loses this war as fast as possible. Meaning more Ukrainians will die, the genocide will continue, children will be abducted, women will be raped, the international order will be nullified, NATO will be broken up. The winner of all this obviously is Russia, and China, and Iran. China, Russia, Iran holding joint naval drills. If North Korea had a navy, they probably also would have joined these naval drills. Dictatorships around the world are militarily working together to destroy the West, destroy NATO, and destroy the United States. This is who MAGA Republicans are allying themselves with in hopes this helps Donald Trump be reelected in November. As an American, this is embarrassing, this is shameful. And if I'm being honest, the average American doesn't think much about foreign policy. We look to our leaders for guidance. We look to our leaders to tell us who are the good guys and who are the bad guys around the world. And for the last year, MAGA Republicans have been telling their supporters the good guys are actually China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran. The bad guys are NATO, Germany, France, United Kingdom, Canada, Japan. I don't know why. Dictatorships all of a sudden are good to MAGA Republicans, and democracy is bad. In the comments section, perhaps you can explain it to me. But the contrast between the two options, Biden or Trump, has never been clearer. Let me play for you this clip of Biden from his State of the Union address last Thursday.
I say this to Congress, we have to stand up to Putin. Send me a bipartisan national security bill. History is literally watching. History is watching. If the United States walks away, it will put Ukraine at risk. Europe is at risk. The free world will be at risk, emboldening others to do what they wish to do us harm. My message to President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down. In a literal sense, history is watching. History is watching.
So when President Biden says we will not walk away from Ukraine, Speaker Johnson doesn't stand up. Speaker Johnson doesn't support Ukraine. He's never supported Ukraine. He's only going to do what Donald Trump tells him to do, and he's going to do everything to block military aid to Ukraine this year. And this is the level of insanity. There are Trump supporters paying Russians to put Trump Make America Great Again markings on North Korean artillery shells being fired at and killing Ukrainians. North Korea is a communist state. It's an absolute dictatorship. I'm speechless. This is the Russian account, Z Shaker Central, where you can pay the Russians to put stuff on their artillery shells that they fire on Ukrainian positions. House Democrats launch an effort to force a vote on Ukraine aid, but face long odds. House Democrats on Tuesday officially launched a long-shot effort to force a vote on the military aid package for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, intensifying pressure on Speaker Johnson. So what the Democrats wanted was a House Republican to lead this effort. Brian Fitzpatrick was the most likely person, but what Speaker Johnson is doing to waste more time is convincing House Republicans to propose alternative versions of military aid for Ukraine. That's a trap. Speaker Johnson is just doing that to once again kill the bill. If the House passes a different version from the Senate, it's got to go back to the Senate to be voted on again. And I'm not feeling confident about getting 60 votes in the Senate yet again. So the only way forward, the only way for military aid for Ukraine to be passed this year is if the House, through the discharge petition process, passes the identical version of the Senate bill. That's the only way this is going to succeed. So Democrats have started this process officially. 30 days, I guess, from now, we can potentially force a vote. Democrats are going to lose some support for signing the discharge petition because there's about 10 or 15 House Democrats who don't like Israel. So we're going to need 10 or 15 House Republicans to sign this discharge petition to pass an identical version of the Senate bill. The fight continues. People are going to be fighting about this for the next 30 to 45 days. Russia is producing 3 times more artillery shells than the United States and EU combined. Russia is producing about 250,000 artillery shells a month, 3 million a year, compared to the 1.2 million annual production from the US and Europe combined. This is pathetic. This is pathetic. We're 2 years into this war. If a single country, let's say Norway, said we're not going to help with anything else, we're not going to provide planes, we're not going to provide tanks, we're not going to give financial aid, all we're going to do is make artillery shells, that honestly would be the most important country in the coalition. If one country 2 years ago had just said, all the money we're going to do to help Ukraine is going to go into our own defense sector to make a massive artillery factory, that would have been more useful than all the other help individually provided from all these countries. I don't understand it. It's incredibly frustrating. I've talked about this in videos before. But hopefully 2 years from now, when the war is still going on, we'll finally have our act together and we'll have the advantage. So here's a clip I want to share with you from Anton. This is how the Russian military gets their water.
Вот таким макаром мы добываем себе воду. Так вот. Набрал. Вот такая. Отменного качества.
The Russian military can produce 3 million artillery shells a year, but they can't figure out how to get bottled water, clean drinking water, to their soldiers on the front line. There's another video. In this video, they're taking water that is condensed on the roof of their shelter, and they're scraping it into a bottle.
Пьется заново. Вот так мы собираем питьевую воду. Вон на потолке капли. И, соответственно, в баночку. Потом отстаиваем. И потом у нас будет кальций не собирай. А то камни в почках образуются.
За сколько мы уже песка нахватали?
Да, кстати, потом на зубах скрипит долго почему-то. Вроде уже все это слюнями разбавил.
Is this really the military that NATO is going to lose to? Their soldiers have to scrape drops of water, condensation off of a brick ceiling? Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. First Oscar in Ukrainian history. Academy Award for 20 Days in Mariupol, a powerful documentary film chronicling the first month of the Mariupol siege, wins the Oscar for Best Documentary. If you haven't seen the acceptance speech, it was wonderful. I'll link it down below. This man, did a very powerful service for his country, risking his life to film all these pictures and videos and get them out to the wider world. When you watch this documentary, I highly recommend it. It's actually free to watch on YouTube, but I think it is country restricted to just the United States. If you use a VPN, you can switch to the United States and watch this for free on YouTube. Otherwise, you can pay to stream it, pay to download it to support the film. But this film is unbelievable. This AP journalist risking his life, being in the city, and then successfully getting it out, getting the hard drives and the pictures and videos out for the world to see. This wasn't supposed to happen. Russia deliberately cut the internet and cut the power so that nobody would see their crimes. The tens of thousands of innocent civilians the Russians killed when they destroyed this entire city. I'll link this down below if you want to put in the time and support the film. Other good news, Denmark announced another 336 million aid package for Ukraine. This is Denmark's 16th military aid package for Ukraine. Thank you so much to the Danish people. You're all fantastic. Final couple clips. The first one is a Russian mom explaining the election to her child and asking who the child would prefer in the upcoming presidential election, and the child got it wrong.
Какой дядя тебе нравится жить? Какой дядя? Вот это. Нет, подожди, считай пальчик. Давай пальчик. Смотри. Вот этот дядя. Вот этот, да, тебе нравится? Вот этот? Нет, вот этот. Нет, вот этот, смотри, он норм. Смотри, красивый. Нет, Агашка, давай вот этого.
The kid picked wrong. I hope she doesn't get sent to a prison camp. Final clip I have for you is from Patron, the bomb-sniffing dog. On his social media, he's always posting cute pictures and videos. I appreciate them. And in this Twitter post, he just says, "Sometimes I pretend I'm just a dog." That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.